Assalamualaikum everybody, and welcome to this webinar that has been organized by the Pakistan Stock Exchange. So the Pakistan Stock Exchange previously led a very comprehensive exercise with the UNDP Pakistan on adopting the SDGs in line with the national framework. So this presentation is part of a series that we've organized. The first one was a review of the work that's been done so far. And this one will talk specifically about how materiality is a roadmap for sustainability. So I look forward to you joining in, and please do feel free to ask questions at the end. So a little bit about myself. Sorry, next slide, please. So my name is Khadija Zahir, as I mentioned before. I'm a sustainability specialist with Lumos Consulting, and Lumos is a boutique sustainability and ESG research and strategy firm. So we're delighted to be working with the Pakistan Stock Exchange on organizing these series of webinars. Next slide, please. So what is materiality? So let's look at the official definition. Materiality as a term, for those of you who are familiar with it, comes from accounting typically, but it has now been adopted by the sustainability world. So what is materiality? According to the Global Reporting Initiative, materiality is defined as issues which have a direct or indirect impact on an organization's ability to create, to preserve, or to erode economic, environmental, and social value for itself, its stakeholders, and society at large. So what are the three issues that we're pointing out here? We're saying specifically economic values, environmental values, and social values. And then we're also talking about a range of perspectives, which are the business itself, the business stakeholders, and the society within which the business functions. So when we talk about materiality and what a materiality-led planning, sorry, we're still on the previous slide. I'll say next when I want to move forward. Right. So what is materiality-led planning for sustainability? It requires you to have a deep understanding of your company's operations, as well as a detailed stakeholder map. It helps your company or your business tailor your sustainability strategy and your stakeholder engagement activities around business drivers that you will identify as being most pressing for your specific business or for your sector. So simply put, materiality, or when you conduct a materiality assessment, it'll ask you to answer 4 questions. The first question is, what are the areas? And we've already identified that these areas are environmental, social, and economic. So what are the areas where your business activities pose a risk to the environment or to society? The second is, what environmental and social issues present a risk to your business? The third is, where does an environmental and social issue impact your business operations? And the fourth is, where does an environmental and social issue affect your reputation and brand value? So effectively, a material sustainability issue is an economic or environmental or a social issue on which a company has an impact. Alternatively, it's an issue that your business is impacted by. And this is also something that will influence your decisions taken both by the company itself as well as by its stakeholders. So what's the key takeaway for this particular section? The takeaway here is that materiality assessments are useful as tools to drill down into sustainability issues that affect a business operations, its reputation, its brand value, and its stakeholder relationships. So next we'll talk a little bit about why does materiality matter. So the reason why materiality matters is that if you are in the business or if you plan to design sustainability measures, and in order for them to be effective, you need to do a materiality assessment, because a materiality assessment will help you identify issues that your sustainability strategy needs to follow. So let's go through these in a little bit more detail. By using materiality as a tool, your business can identify and respond to sustainability issues, which will impact your business operations, your reputation, your brand value, and your risk management. And this is two advantages. One, it will close the gap between what your business is doing and what it is reporting on. And two, utilizing materiality as a tool to define, measure, and report on sustainability issues represents a transformative shift in thinking. So what does that mean when we talk about a transformative shift in thinking? Here specifically, we are referring to the fact that too often sustainability is either seen as a PR-driven approach or it is seen as something that is externally imposed, so a mandatory compliance requirement. And there is a limited understanding, or at least there is a limited understanding of how this can be embedded into business operations, or why there is a business case for adopting materiality-led sustainability. But once you adopt this particular framework, you will adopt a more business-like approach, which will be informed by longer-term organizational and stakeholder imperatives. So specifically then, how does a materiality assessment help you? One, the most obvious, is that it'll serve as a useful guide for developing and implementing sustainability and communication strategies. Two, it makes the case for a sustainable strategy. And it makes the case obvious, both in terms of long and short-term endeavors. So what does that mean? A short-term endeavors could mean something like making sure that all the energy in your building shifts to more energy efficient lighting, for instance. And that's not a civil structure change, but that's simply a change of the kind of products that you use. A longer term investment or a longer term engagement would have to be looking at, so for instance, how you can adopt clean energy. And that's a longer term engagement. So what this means then is that when you make the case for materiality-led sustainability, it will allow you to leverage anticipated results of the assessment to garner support for future actions and strategy. So you're building the case for yourself as you follow this particular process. The third advantage of adopting materiality-led sustainability is that it will help you design audience-specific communication strategies. So what do I mean by audiences here? Any business has a range of stakeholders that it engages with, that it's involved with. And these stakeholders range from your board members to C-suite, to your middle management, to your employees, to supply chain partners, to external partners. And while you may or you may not refer to them as stakeholders, for convenience, let's refer to these disparate audience groups as stakeholders. Now, these different audience groups or these different stakeholders have different priorities. They have different jobs, they have different informational needs, and they have different communication needs. So by adopting a materiality-led sustainability process, you're going to be designing audience-specific communication strategies, which means that you'll be able to communicate effectively with different audiences, and you'll be able to get buy-in to the process, because the communication strategies and the goals of those communication strategies will match the audience that you are attempting to engage. So the fourth is getting ahead of long-term risks. Businesses typically are familiar with the concept of a quadrant of priorities, as in what is important and urgent versus what is not important and not urgent. And a materiality assessment helps you populate this matrix and flag business drivers that might not be captured otherwise. The fifth one is identifying trends. So by populating a materiality matrix, you'll be able to pinpoint trends that are both emergent as well as future trends. And finally, it'll help you meet existing and future compliance expectations. The key takeaway from this particular slide is to remember that what gets measured is the thing that gets managed. So if you are falling short of measuring issues that you need to collect data on and that you then need to analyze that data on, any future risks or any future opportunities that might arise as a result of that data will not get reflected in your business operations. So let's talk a little bit about what are the key questions that you need to answer before you get started in this process? So in the next slide. So what are the 3 questions that you have to ask yourself? Basically, you want to first determine what is the framework you want to align to. So what does that mean when you say framework? There's a range of frameworks that are available, and some might even say that businesses are increasingly suffering from reporting fatigue because there are so many conflicting frameworks, because there are so many compliance requirements. But one way to address this issue is to determine what framework you want to align to, which suits your particular business. So, i.e., are you going to adopt science-based targets, which have to do with climate action? Are you going to apply global targets, such as those identified by the SDGs, and which have further been identified for the Pakistan context, specifically by the Pakistan Stock Exchange? There's about 6 of them. And then, or you want to apply a more finance and resilience focused approach, which is something that you could get from the Global Reporting Initiative or from the Principles on Responsible Investing. The key is to figure out which of these frameworks will work best for you. The next question that you need to answer is, what's your anticipated stakeholder engagement? So what kinds of reporting and disclosure requirements do you intend to follow? What kinds of communications are you going to send out to your various stakeholders? What is going to be the frequency of these? And typically, you want to look at what are the best practices in governance that you want to adopt. And finally, you want to answer, how do you intend to set targets, and what utility is the data I have that you're going to collect to build sustainable actions and strategies? So when we talk about metrics or the data and targets that you're setting, we're looking at KPIs effectively. And KPIs can refer to environmental, social, and governance, or ESG issues. They can refer to risk management and preparation. They can refer to efficiency and performance at the asset level. Or you can look at sort of waste and pollution indicators. The key to remember is that the answer to these 3 questions is, as you can see from the slide, where these 3 questions converge, that's where materiality-led sustainability lies. And that's effectively the starting point of your sustainability journey. One of the things that I would like to take this time to remind you at this point is that it is very, very important to remember that materiality is entirely contingent on stakeholder perspective. So we'll look at concrete examples of this later on, but for now, let me give you an example of SDG 6. So SDG 6, or the Global Goal 6, addresses clean water and sanitation. This is also a goal that has been picked up by the Pakistan Stock Exchange for companies to report on. What does SDG 6 ask specifically? SDG 6 asks you to assess how to increase water efficiency, promote sustainable water withdrawals and supplies. Now, what does this mean? So if we look at Pakistan, for instance, we can say that water scarcity is considered a material issue for beverage companies, which would be like PepsiCo or Nestle or anyone that's involved in this kind of activity, or textile companies such as Gul Ahmad or Nishat Mills, etc. Why? Because they rely on water to produce their products. So without a consistent supply of inexpensive products, if inexpensive water, they would likely face challenges. But there are other people who also rely on these exact same water sources. So companies may then face pressure from stakeholder groups who object to them sourcing water from water-stressed regions. And water scarcity, therefore, becomes a material issue not only for their corporate and operational life, but also for their sustainability efforts. Why? Because 1, sales and profitability are at stake if and when water becomes scarce, as it's likely to. 2, their actions impact water availability. And 3, stakeholder groups care about whether water scarcity is being addressed by a materially affected company. So how does your company manage this risk? So this issue of SDG 6, or water scarcity specifically, illustrates why materiality is not just a test of financial significance. It is a balanced assessment on internal and external perspectives across a range of risk perceptions and values. So now let me take you through in a little bit more detail of what it means to apply a materiality framework in the next slide. So as you can see from this slide, broadly speaking, defining and applying a materiality framework falls into three groups. Phases 1 and 2 focus on defining the purpose and scope and what materiality means for you, as well as identifying potential issues. Phases 3 has to do with categorizing these issues and identifying them. Phase 4 has to do with introducing these issues to your stakeholder groups for discussion and consultation. And phase 5 has to do with prioritizing from this broader collection of material issues that you consider significant or through consensus. And finally, phases 6 and 7 focus on introducing these prioritized issues to the rest of the organization, establishing data collection metrics and aligning requirements. Technically, there should have been an arrow that goes all the way from phase 7 to phase 1 to show that this is a closed feedback loop, which effectively means that implementing materiality-led sustainability is not a one and done process. If anything, there are multiple opportunities to revise and refine the process while you achieve your outcomes. In fact, your outcomes themselves might change depending on your business context and goals. The focus or the important thing at this point to remember is to get started. So in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more detail about what it means to go through this intensive process of defining and applying a materiality framework. In stage 1, you look at identifying risks, and you can do this by benchmarking against peers or by getting stakeholder views. Once you've identified material issues, you have to determine which of them to disclose and which of them to prioritize. Stage 2 refers to defining response strategies once you've collected metrics and you've defined your response plan. So what does that mean specifically? So when you define your response strategies, this will be based on your capacity as a business to either absorb or to ignore or respond to non-financial risks. And then once you've made your selection, you will then determine what kind of response options you will have in place. What are the KPIs that you will formulate, and how will you go about setting targets? And finally, you'll develop implementation plans. For implementation plans to be successful and effective, they need to include clear roles and responsibilities of who is going to have ownership of which KPIs, which targets, and which part of the data collection. And this has to be in line with organizational hierarchies, because this is not a one-person process. There needs to be ownership throughout the organization in order for this to be effective. And that's what gets us to stage 3, which is about getting buy-in from managers and from C-suite and the board, as well as from employees. So typically when you implement and you communicate your response plans, as well as your compliance and governance needs, you're going to do this in line with who's going to be doing what and what their informational needs are. You'll be aligning internal reporting systems in service of organizational needs, as well as meeting external reporting requirements. And most importantly, you'll be training and educating staff on how to pursue this process. Stage 4 deals specifically with collating and analyzing data, including measuring non-financial risks and sustainability outputs. Stage 5 addresses assuring metrics and prepping reporting in line with your requirements. And stage 6 has to do with evaluating and revising your sustainability management outcomes. So what does this mean? This means that materiality-led sustainability is an iterative process, as we've described before. It is a process that offers an opportunity for improvement and to move forward in a way that is transformative for the business. So let's look at the next slide, in which I give you an example of a generic materiality framework, and then we'll follow this up with a more specific materiality framework. So when we talk about materiality matrices, as I mentioned to you before, materiality is contingent on stakeholder perspective. So for instance, here we talk about importance to stakeholders, and then we talk about importance to company X. Priorities are then divided between low, medium, and high. So for instance, on the slide, if you look at along the axis for the importance to stakeholders, if you look at the medium category, you'll see community relations and employee health. So now for various stakeholders, this is of a medium priority. Whereas if you look at it from the perspective of company X, this is of a low priority. On the other hand, if you move to the extreme right of the slide, and then you look at the high priority category from the company's perspective, then you will see that taxation and government regulations are very important for companies. But on the other hand, for stakeholders, they're of a medium priority. And that might have to do with who the stakeholders are. So for instance, for your supply chain partners, these might not be very important, but for C-suite or for board members, these might be very important. In the next slide, I'm going to look very specifically at General Motors' 2019 materiality matrix. And General Motors has been a long advocate of materiality-led sustainability, but this is also something that they have practiced a great deal of transparency by showcasing their materiality matrices and then also identifying how and why they came to these particular decisions. So this particular slide, you can see that it's importance to stakeholders and again, importance to General Motors. It's divided along two axes. General Motors has defined their materiality issues in terms of planet. So planet would mean environmental issues specifically, which would be water, environment, waste management, pollution, climate action, etc. Then blue is for product, which is specifically the vehicles that they produce. Gray is for people, where they talk about stakeholders, broadly speaking, and more specifically employees and investors. And then black is for profit. So again, in this, we will see that, for instance, for stakeholders, climate change management is of extremely high priority, whereas for GM, it's of a low to a medium priority. But on the other hand, if you look at things like financial performance and resilience, for GM, this is of a very high priority, whereas for stakeholders, this is of a medium priority. So already we can see that there are divergences between what stakeholders say is important and what GM says is important. But this particular slide also shows that if you focus in the center of the table, you will see that issues such as energy reduction, renewable energy, diversity and inclusion, as well as responsible employment practices are all clustered together in the center of the slide, in the medium priority range. And this is where views from both stakeholders and GM align. So what you can see from both this slide as well as the previous one is that there will be instances where stakeholder and business priorities will converge, and there will be instances where they will diverge significantly. The point that I'm trying to make is that you need to capture material issues and these various points of convergence and divergence, because it's only by carefully populating a materiality matrix that your business will be able to implement an effective materiality-led sustainability strategy. And this is where part of, for instance, if you were reporting on the PSX's identification of the SDGs, you would then sort of look at your material issues and see where they fall in line with the SDGs. So for instance, if you were working on issues of clean water and sanitation, as I mentioned in a previous slide on water scarcity, then you would be referring to SDG 6. Alternatively, if you were in making long-term investments in clean energy, or if you were shifting away as a business in your operations and production from reliance on fossil fuel to renewable energy, then you would be looking at SDG 7, which has to do with affordable and clean energy. So the whole process is to be looking at, in order to make a business case, as we keep coming back to this question, is that what is the business case for sustainability? The whole point of doing a materiality assessment is to use materiality to frame your sustainability questions, because then you will see the business case make it for itself. I realize I've sort of spoken a lot in this half an hour, and there are a lot of ideas that I've thrown at you. So I'm happy to take questions at this point, and please let me know if you have any of them. And thank you again for your time and for your patience. Well, if we don't have any questions, then again, thank you so much for attending. And I hope that you found this session informative. If you have any questions after the fact, or once this video has been uploaded to YouTube and you've had a chance to review it, then please do get in touch with either Fahad, who's the organizer at BSX, or with myself, and my details are available in the presentation. Once again, thank you for your time, and I hope you found this useful.